Welcome. Hello. My name is Modupe Oshin, and I'm here with my two dynamic colleagues, Nina Yuen and Zysnia Linger, and we welcome you to our workshop on mitigating stereotype threat through representation for the underrepresented. Our hope is that we learn together. Our hope is that in sharing our stories, in sharing our students' stories, in some of our practices and reflections, that we can grow together, critically think together, reflect together, and return to our schools inspired with tools and energy to support our kids. The structure of our workshop is to share a bit about ourselves and our story, to share our student stories, as I mentioned, and lastly, highlight what practices have worked for us and what we plan to build on, and also hear from you. We would like to start our workshop with a little pre-assessment, just asking if you would answer a question that we're all going to do live. And the two questions are, where are you? What's your role in your school? And what does success look like for you at the end of this workshop?
Part 1. Our STEAM story.
Hi, Zysnia. How are you?
Hello, Modupe. I'm
so glad you're doing this workshop with me. So tell me a little bit about you. Like, what do you do? What's your STEM story?
Yes. So currently, this is my fourth year at GFA. I am a sixth grade math teacher. I've taught Math 6A, pre-algebra, and recently took on director of the Math Center. So we have upper school students that come down and give up a free period of their time to offer assistance when problem solving on math homework and preparing for assessments.
How did you get into this field? Like some background?
Yes, so from a young age, my dad was a big proponent and lover of math, but throughout the years, it didn't always come easily, and I took that placement test to excel into the honors math class, and I actually didn't make the cut. And that whole year of sixth grade was really not as challenging as I had hoped, but it was definitely a confidence builder. And by the end of the year, the teachers recognized that I was a stronger math student, and they gave me the opportunity to learn everything that the advanced sixth graders had learned throughout the year on my own, and then take another test to move to that accelerated group. So it was me and my friend Brittany, and we spent the entire summer teaching each other, teaching ourselves, and exploring all these math concepts. And that's where I kind of fell in love with math, knowing that the path is gray, but our answers are always black and white, and hearing each other's stories and how we approach problem solving and figuring it out and what our strategies were was very enjoyable. And then from then on, I kind of stuck with math, and it became a part of my identity that I really enjoyed it and I loved it.
Or STEM story?
Well, I'm an artist who became a computer science teacher because I'm interested in creativity and where good ideas come from. And I've slowly moved into these courses where students come up with innovations and work on product design.
I make a conscious effort to bring my perspective as a queer woman of color to my teaching. This is a photo of my family at the farmer's market. We're selling bananas from our family farm. That's my mom. She's Puerto Rican and Cuban. And that's my dad. His Chinese side came to Hawaii 5 generations ago to work on the sugarcane plantations. My partner identifies as gender nonconforming and is a Korean American. and we are both teachers. I teach computer science, and they teach art.
What do I do? So I direct the STEAM program at Greens Farms Academy in Westport, Connecticut, affectionately known as GFA. I also teach all our seventh graders science, biology, and I run a small elective middle school science and engineering research program. Prior to teaching, I worked at a biotech company doing research and designing assays and experiments in a lab. And I think that background really informs so much of what I do as I teach biology in middle school and lead the STEAM program at my school. This is my 12th year in the classroom. So I've been married for 16 years. I have two daughters. I have a 15-year-old and a 13-year-old. And they both attend Greens Farms Academy. So as I was saying, it's my 12th year teaching in the classroom, 5th year at GFA, 4th year at POCC, and my 2nd year as the director of STEAM at GFA. So in my role as the director of STEAM, it's a K-12 program, and I lead and support a trio of liaisons. So there's a liaison or coordinator for lower school, middle school, and upper school, and I double up as a middle school liaison, and sometimes upper school. I split that. And our STEAM signature program is essentially a K-12 pipeline that really proactively ensures that every student experiences STEAM disciplines in an interdisciplinary way. So in our lower school, that looks like intentional STEAM programming in the curriculum. There's a showcase event we call Lower School STEAM Night, and it's just a beautiful collaboration put on by the lower school faculty and led by our own, Susan O'Brien, who's the lower school STEAM coordinator. In middle school and high school, it looks like, culminating inquiry STEAM, robust STEAM projects in the science classroom and in elective courses, and a science and STEAM expo. And also, we have a newly established computer science and engineering department, and we actually teach some standalone courses, 5th grade to 12th grade. Telling a part of my STEM story. So my parents were Nigerian immigrants, and I was primarily educated in urban inner city schools, and I so value learning environments and spaces where representation mattered. So where my peers looked like me, and some of my instructors, faculty also did. So I, had opportunities in that context to also attend independent school programs. So during high school, to sort of supplement that inner city experience, and all of that I bring to what I do and how I engage in this work, and it really informs how I support students today. Countless studies show that there are bleak disparities among students of color and students from underrepresented backgrounds who eventually, study science, technology, engineering, and math in school, and even bleaker numbers of those same students getting into and staying in STEM fields and careers. So, I've taught students in these current spaces where oftentimes representation is not a given, right? They're in independent schools where sometimes they're the only one or only ones in their cohort. So I've thought about this. I've kind of tried to critically consider how to mitigate this, how to engage and capture, in my case, my classroom of middle schoolers, and help them launch them towards like a positive trajectory and outcome.
Part 2, our student stories. When we were thinking of a positive trajectory, we first thought of Zoma, who made the Connecticut Charities app at the Connecticut Science Fair. She was our middle school student, but now she's studying AP Computer Science in the upper school. There's Talani, who made the Petty generator that turns steps into energy, and she won awards for renewable energy, biotechnology, sustainability, and energy-related research. We also thought of Jacob, who built his water filtration system and a solar ignition rocket. He's won awards including the National Aerospace Award at the Invention Convention. We also wanted to talk to Ahmad, who won honors for his work with collagen, calcium, and phosphorus solutions, building eco-friendly constructions. We talked to Gemma and Audit and Will, who are upper school STEM students. We were also interested in talking to some of our alums, like Leah Atai. Leah graduated from GFA 2 years ago, and she was known for her work with underrepresented minorities in STEM. She's currently a STEM scholar at Gettysburg College.
What's your STEM story?
I was the bravest child I knew. Just like having two older brothers, I wanted to be braver than. And then when I moved up to middle school, I feel like a lot of that changed really quickly and lost confidence, especially in math. Statistically, that's when girls tend to lose their confidence in their math skills. It very much rattled everything I knew about myself. I didn't have a word for it at the time. I love having computer science classes so very, very, very much. The once in a while where I forget a method or can't figure out how to debug a code, it'll hit again, and it feels like a much greater stake as like a girl of color in a male-dominated field.
When I tell people like I take computer science or I like STEM at all, they seem surprised, which like I feel like I don't know why they would seem surprised, because when other people say that they like comp sci, like they don't seem surprised at all. But I think it's because like maybe I'm like a girl who's like Black, so they don't think I'm gonna be into that stuff. But
I think the best remedy for imposter syndrome in college, for me at least, has just been the support system I have. Really supportive friends and family when I'm stressed and can't figure out how to fix the code or something. That they'll remind me exactly why I'm there and how much I love computer science.
Do your parents, do they ever bring up race or gender like you talked about when it comes to like computer science or STEM fields?
they know like how that's like a male dominated field, but they have a lot of faith in me. So like they know even if there are obstacles, like I can make it through. They haven't like said it outright, but I think I know my parents, and I think they're proud of me at least.
We have these students that are succeeding. They're coming from families that have been supporting them this whole way. And also sometimes they're coming from, not from just our school, they're coming from these really amazing schools in our area.
What other programs have you done?
The Google STEP internship, I did the Google CSED, which is the 3-week program for rising college freshmen. And then before that, I did Tech, which is a 6-month program with MIT. And then before that, I did Girls Who Code. And before that, I did Horizons. I always stayed away from comparing myself to others. Maybe with my brothers, sure, but that's because we're family. We're allowed for as long as I can remember. It's never like a part of my nature to really want to just be the best in comparison to other people. If I'm the best to myself, that's cool. That's rad. If one of us does well, we all do well. No matter who the smartest person in the room is, there's always something for everyone to learn, and sharing that hurts no one.
Part 3. Stereotype threat and iteration. Iteration in the design process helps students mitigate stereotype threat. If students carry an implicit belief that people like them are not good STEM students, iteration gives them an opportunity to try many times, to name their mistakes, and to learn from their mistakes. This takes away some of the pressure to feel somehow intrinsically talented in a subject.
I think throughout the years, I've tried to remind the students that like it's okay to make mistakes. And so I approach it from an angle of, okay, let's identify our errors, let's classify them, and how can we grow off of that, and what can we learn from those mistakes? Oh, am I always, making a precision error? I need more attention to detail. So that way they know that there are reasons for errors, right? And there are reasons behind the errors, and what can we do with that, and how can we move forward? And I think that by incorporating the Math Center into our GFA life and our math life, I think that it allows the opportunity for the upper school students to share their stories of, yeah, math wasn't always really easy for me, but here's how I navigated it. And hopefully that works for you too. And so it's really just all about the support and how they come together. Um, and I do this a lot in volleyball when they say they can't serve, but whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So reminding the students that like you really can do it if you put your mind to it. It may not look the way that it may not go the way that you thought it would look like, but there may be other tools in place that you have to implement or other strategies you have to use to move forward.
Kind of the professional question, and just my story about how I did science research, right? That's my background. I love teaching biology, but that's all I did in teaching. And I remember a couple of years ago just being the STEAM liaison and being asked, all right, do you want to be liaison? And not being sure of that leadership role and just going, I don't know, this isn't, and I think about like Stereotype, all this stuff we're talking about, and only wanting to do things as long as I can do it well, right?
Yeah, well, I think with me, I'm kind of an art brain person who wants to pursue science. So when I do things, it's very messy. It's very kind of just like throwing things together and trying them instead of writing down, making a plan. Sometimes if I have to, I will. But I really just like testing things. I like imagining how they might work. And so I think that is also why oftentimes I feel like this kind of sense of imposter syndrome, because I'm just throwing a bunch of things out. Not a lot of them work, while a lot of other people are creating one plan and sticking to it really rigidly and having a final project that's neat and all together. And I can get there after a bit, but I kind of have to like go through this very like windy creative process to get there.
That's interesting that it's like it's not a straight line for you.
Nope, never.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that is, if you don't expect it to be a straight line, that it doesn't have to feel like you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, opening up a processing sketch, you have to you open up your sketch, you see what's wrong, you fix it in the code, and then you open the sketch again. And it's basically just doing that over and over again that gets you to where you want to go. And I mean, doing that for a while and then figuring out that, say, like your teacher isn't available or your friends aren't available, you have to go into the website yourself and look around and figure out what you need to do next. So, I mean, entering is probably one of my favorite parts of doing STEAM and STEM and this entire course in general, because even if you don't get it right the first time, you can still have like a million other tries to try and do what you want to do.
When I made mistakes, like it wasn't like that, like the final mistake ever. It was just like, oh, it's okay to make mistakes. And Miss Smith, she's all about like revising your work and like going back and like getting more points like on an assignment. Like even not for the points, just to like see what you did wrong, really learn like why you got that thing wrong.
One day in my geometry class, Mr. Martocchio is just struggling to clean his smartboard. So I thought, that's it. I'm going to build some kind of machine that would help Mr. Martocchio. The thought occurred to me of putting two actobiotic channels to each other. And I had spent so many frees and so many lunch periods working on this machine. I even stayed after school. I came before school even started.
Okay, so this is a personal thing. Every night before I went to sleep, I actually thought about what I can do to improve my machine. That just sounds like a crazy person, I know, but it actually helps.
Quarantine hit us. Because I had set up my Zoom station in the basement of my house, so I first tried it on my washing machine, and it worked. And I was just like, okay, cool, I could do that. And then I finally found my refrigerator. I was like, hold up, it is white? You can technically draw on it like a whiteboard. And it has the same magnetic property as a smartboard. I liked looking at it in the summer.
Yeah.
Because it reminded me of where I came from, where I will go with that.
Part 4. Social Justice Curriculum. A social justice curriculum in STEM appeals to underrepresented minority students because it allows them to link their work with a value they care about, instead of just taking on an arbitrary skill just for the sake of being good at that skill.
My social justice curriculum provide representation and relevance to students of color in STEM field?
Let the students know, also serve as a reminder that our school isn't the only community. Fairfield County isn't the only community, and branching that out to the world, and seeing more than just themselves, but then seeing themselves in the world.
Yeah, definitely. And I think student choice is a big deal, a really important part of that. I think about in seventh grade, just talking about the project that I do. It's called the Human Body Project, and students get to select a human body system that they're interested in. So whether it be the skeletal system or the nervous system, and in kind of choosing something you're interested in, and oftentimes connecting it to a disease or disorder or a part of the body that they might be passionate about. And the challenge is, how do you explore this? So learn about this. It's an inquiry project where they learn about the parts, the biology, structure, function, homeostasis, etc. And then the next step is, they do get a representative either organ, or, for example, if you are the skeletal system, you get like a chicken wing to dissect. So they do their science projects connected to this body system. But then the third piece is to generate a STEAM project. So you get to really explore either a disorder or a need that someone maybe in your body system group might have.
Thanks. So I remember his Human Body Project, somebody 3D printed a new design for an inhaler. There was an at-home eye test. There was a helmet that signaled for help in Morse code when somebody went into free fall. There was a hand exercise device for somebody with a disability, and there was a prosthetic design for a prosthetic hand.
Hey, we're learning, science or technology or engineering or math or computer science. And yes, this is a skill we're learning. And yes, you might get some choice in choosing, but here are the social justice issues, right? These are the UN sustainability goals, right? Here are things that are important, period. And getting some literacy around that, right? So this is important. This is what it means. Baseline literacy around those issues. And then, maybe practicing, hey, let's choose one issue similar to what you do in your design thinking class, right? Let's talk about this one issue. Let's flesh that out together. And then, so they have some things to choose from, right? I mean, definitely they have things from their experiences, but making it across the curriculum, cross-divisional, where, hey, these are issues we care about and we're going to tackle as a program.
My project is aiming to mesh the water transportation capabilities of the HIPAA roller, which already exists, with water purification process, which will get energy from rolling the HIPAA roller and storing that energy.
For my project, I'm creating a system of devices that wirelessly connect buttons on a keypad to objects around the house that create sound when the buttons are pressed so that the visually impaired can locate them.
In order to help reduce consumer food waste, I'm designing a program in refrigerators that uses image recognition and timestamps to identify food and determine its freshness in order to make recipe recommendations based on what foods are going bad.
In order to eliminate package and product waste, I am creating a shelf that helps measure the weight of goods and schedule pickup times for your reusable bottles. Bing Bong is the easy and eco-friendly way to constantly have the products you need.
My design is a piece of earthquake-proof furniture that can sustain a lot of weight. It can also send signals to the rescue team, indicating how many people are trapped underground in the location where they're trapped.
A project that you're super proud of.
I had this idea of filter water using reverse osmosis, which is a technique of like pushing water through like a fine filter. What if you could get the energy to do that from a rushing river? I made a little DIY filter, just like a proof of concept. Then I also combined like a water turbine with it. It's just like, I just thought it would be cool. Like if you live in a developing country, those are like clean water and clean energy are two things that would be really good to have.
For my project, I made the petty generator, which is basically a shoe that can turn your steps into energy using piezoelectrics. In developing countries, there aren't a lot of electrical resources, so having a way to, I think people were walking really far to get to electricity. So if you were making double the amount of electricity that you first made by just walking with her, that would be.
But I think about, these, like what social justice topic like is important to you or you might be interested in exploring in your classes, or how does that show up in the courses that you've taught?
Students will choose a value that they care about. So I have a whole list of hello, my name is kind of stickers, but instead it says hello, I care about. And they'll wear something that says like they care about creativity, equity, diversity, safety, education. They have this whole list of things they can care about. And when they're working on their designs, they're physically wearing this thing like over their heart. That is the sticker. So they're really thinking about the role of their values in what they're designing. And then they think about different kinds of public infrastructure, like drive-ins, marketplaces, public art. Like there's a whole list of possibilities for them to think about. And they think about problems like increasing access to healthy food, informing citizens of their rights, people to read.
Research shows that when there's a problem to solve that's connected to social justice, there's some groups that are more into STEM when you propose it that way.
Any like real world problem to STEM, there's going to be more people that are interested in it. Okay. Because otherwise, it just seems like the people would think like, well, why would you need this skill?
Yeah, so like what's the application?
I've always been environmentally concerned, and rockets really interested me, so I thought maybe I could combine the two in some way. This is a solar ignition rocket system. It uses a mirror to concentrate the sun's light.
This project got you to be a finalist at the Connecticut Invention Convention, right? And got you to go to nationals. Got a picture of you getting your National Aerospace Award.
I wasn't expecting it. I definitely think my idea was much better than the actual project.
A talent you bring to this, right? Your creativity and ideas to problem solve. And then once you get those skills, oh my goodness, what a combination.
Part 5. Representation matters. Representation is an important first step. Once our program has some representation, it's important that we develop relationships with students, give them options, and then leverage our relationships to encourage students to take advantage of these options.
Recently conducted a qualitative research survey capturing about 75% of the upper school's student population responses. This slide shows student responses broken down by race according to the statement, I feel included in the GFA community. The dark blue shows the strongly agree responses. The agree is here in the burgundy, and the light blue are the strongly disagrees. As you can see, 2 of the 170 strongly disagree, whereas a vast majority agrees and strongly disagrees, if you look in this category here. In contrast, first of all, there are only about 30 students of color. And if you look at the most underrepresented group down here, no one strongly agrees. In fact, the number of strongly disagrees and neither agree or disagree is actually equal to the agree group. The second statement that we looked at was this one. GFA is welcoming and inclusive for students regardless of their race and ethnicity. You see a similar trend, and this time, both underrepresented groups in STEM fields show no strongly agrees and follow this concerning trend. We are told by the organization that conducted our survey that these responses are comparable to our peer independent schools. And as we reflect on this data, we are compelled to affirm that representation matters as we begin to mitigate these trends.
How many people of your race do you think are in STEM fields, like STEM professions?
Maybe like 35%.
Probably less than 10.
7 to 10%.
Less than 5%, or like
Okay.
a max maybe 10.
5 to 10.
According to a study by the National Science Foundation, these are the percentages of different identity groups working in science and engineering occupations in 2015. 14% are Asian men, 7% are Asian women, 3% are Black men, 2% are Black women, 4% are Hispanic men, 2% are Hispanic women.
I think it's important to create affinity spaces for students of color, especially those from marginalized groups. I think about, oftentimes, especially when I first started off in my science and engineering research group, it would be no coincidence that, the two students of color in my that I taught. So I teach all the seventh graders, and they would opt into the science and engineering research group. And I know, right? Maybe they were all interested in science and engineering, but maybe not, right? Maybe because of my very identity, right? They were drawn to my program. So, I would have some of these groups where, they would be an affinity more so in this group than anywhere else, right? Even if it was two or three of them. So I think that's been really important. I think really prioritizing or encouraging just um, outright just mentioning to students, hey, have you considered a leadership opportunity, or have you considered being a math center advisor, or have you considered signing up for science, engineering, and research, or have you considered doing robotics? So, I think of another anecdote. I was on, there's a high school at which we interviewed, Zoma, and she was, she went through my science and engineering research course. She's now in high school. She's like in AP computer science right now, and I just kind of heard that like the robotics team was starting, and there was like maybe like one or two girls, and I saw her, and I'm like, hey Zoma, how are you doing? I haven't talked to you in like a couple of years. And she's just like, yeah, I'm in AP comp sci, and I'm just blown away that she's doing this. And I'm like, oh my goodness, are you in robotics? Have you even thought of it? And it just was not on her radar. And it just took me just mentioning like, hey, robotics is a thing, you can see yourself there. And then now like she's looking into it, and I think it's so important to speak that even when it might seem obvious. So
students having options, so that the school has those options available, so that we can recommend the students to, hey, go try robotics, or hey, go try coding for a little bit, tell me how you like it, right? But we can't even prompt or offer that if we have it available. So I think just broadening our curriculum offers in general is a way to help mitigate stereotype. Okay, well, speaking from my own experience, while I didn't have people of color in science and math, but I had women in those fields, that was a way for me to see myself as one part of my identity. So I feel like if there are more teachers of color in those STEM fields, and throughout, not just in middle school or not just in upper school, but across the board, that there's consistency, that students are seeing themselves in their teachers. I think that would help them see themselves and what things they're capable of.
And can you speak a little bit about your career and your path and journey as a Math Center advisor?
I became a Math Center advisor as a freshman.
But here you are helping Gazin Far. So at the time, he was a sixth grader. And then another one, you are really hands off and
awesome.
Being able to guide them in both those pictures that you spoke to. You spoke about needing to explain the process and know the topic versus doing something for someone.
Did you go to the Math Center?
Well, I was an advisor last year.
You were the advisor leader in that space.
Having Jacob, especially as a good friend, as a person of color, it definitely helped me. Like when I was young, I would always look at like people doing science and math and like colors, and I'm like, why are they all white? So having someone that's not white, it also was like good to know that I wasn't the only one in there.
The advisors aren't just any upper school students, and the teachers actually nominate the students that become advisors, and then the students have to decide whether or not they accept the nomination. So that's how they get selected. So it's their choice. Okay, we have recognized you as someone who is capable and would provide a positive positive skills for the Math Center. And I remember one teacher specifically saying, "Oh, this student isn't my strongest student, but they've navigated the course really well." And I said, and that's what we're really looking for. Students that know that it's okay, it's going to be hard, but what can we use? What can we use and what can we do to put my best foot forward? And know that, okay, at the end of the day, it may not be the grade that I want, but it is my best.
I think about, it's just interesting when you're talking about your thinking. I think of, my younger daughter who had you last year and loved having you as a math teacher, and that really boosting her confidence, right, in math, and her just like loving math and loving you and just going, Miss Linger loves me, like just this intuitive knowledge that she had that like her teacher must like her because, or loves her. And that just correlating with like her performance.
Every year, at the end of each year, I send out a little survey. What worked well? What could we improve on? And what are you most excited about for the following year? And some of the responses that I had were just like, they just really warmed my heart. Just getting to hear stories during the school year of a student coming in and saying, "Oh my gosh, my advisor was swimming and then they stayed after and cheered me on throughout my swim meet." I loved building relationships with the kids I advised. I saw them at squash courts, in the cafeteria, and around school. It was fun, and they remembered me. It's actually a great way to build community. I personally loved having a standing appointment with the younger student because it allowed me to learn more about them as a math student and as a person over time. And this connection allowed me to cater my teaching or mentoring approach to what the student would be most receptive to. In turn, I feel like the student became more comfortable with me and more willing to leave his comfort zone and ask questions. And I'm like, wow, that's such a sweet story. And they would have never known each other or cross paths if they hadn't, met at the Math Center.
What's interesting is I think that students like you also provide representation. There are kids in college right now that are looking up to you.
That's terrifying.
The middle school kids who you taught that robotics class to, they still really remember, and they're my really strong comp sci kids now.
Well, on the first day, we wrote down a bunch of things to agree upon as a club. We call them community norms. Respect the robots and the robot parts, and also respect each other. It also created an environment that allowed us to share our creations without any worry of competition or the fear of being judged, all that scary stuff.
It still lives on in our school, the curriculum that you wrote. But can you describe what it was? Can you describe Syllabote?
Syllabote is it's a little robot designed to help teach middle schoolers computer science.
This is my pet, and it took like an hour or so to build it. But that's okay.
This is my microbit.
This is my microbit.
Here's my final microbit pet.
This is my little microbit thing. For the neck, I used a Nerf dart. So it's like, can turn.
When you press button A, it has a little pig nose. I really love tennis and I really love cats, so I combine them both. Tennis cat.
Jeff has 2 different size hands. I actually didn't do this on purpose.
When I put 3 G's of force, I coded it to say ow because it hurts. It hurts him. When I free fall it, it says why, because it wants to know why its creator wants to destroy it. If I put the screen up, it's gonna tell me the temperature. So right now it's 77 degrees where I'm filming this video, which is in my bedroom. Oh, and by the way, its name is Charlie. It does 4 blanks and then 2 blanks, which in Morse code means hi. Has a little hat. It also has eyebrows.
Interviewing these kids, I remember just reflecting and talking to these high schoolers and going, oh my goodness, you've come a long way, and being intentional and then connecting them. Like I told them all in their interviews, oh my goodness, we're going to follow up, we're going to watch these videos, and you're going to form a network. That's so important. Like that was so important with me and my upbringing, but being, there might be 1 here and 2 in each grade, but being intentional about putting them together, having them be in the same space so they have that critical mass. I was to leave with something. It's this idea of representation matters. I know we say it and we've said it and it's in the title of our workshop, but It really does. It really matters. And having kids that look like other kids and having their role models and teachers and that respect, just like you said, of the programs they've come from, right? Really, really builds up the child. So thank you so much for joining us in our workshop. And we would like to answer a second question. And the question is, what are you going to get from this workshop? What did you get from this workshop that you are hoping to take back with you to your school?